Sextants have reclassed. The Magisters of Orient are merciful and have granted all exiles one weapon. Choose wisely. Orient has bestowed a gift upon you, a chance to redeem your crimes, a new life. Do not squander it.
To come.
It's not a complete loss, I suppose. The way I hear it, there'll be plenty of work for a man of my talents and great class.
A warrior stands before you, and death walks at our side.
This life will be written to answer but one question. Who am I?
My freedom and my bow, that's all I need.
I will live to hear them scream my name in the great arenas again.
The elements are my allies, the dead are my servants, and fear will be my closest friend.
I ran 100 Skittering Delirium Orbs Strand maps and the result has been absolutely mind-blowing. Hey, I'm Cyclon, and today I want to share with you another variation of 80% Delirium Orb Farming. Now, we get to in a moment why is this another, why it's different, and what are the pros or cons comparing those two. But before that, most importantly, As usual, of course, you can find a link to the spreadsheet in the description where you can take a look at everything yourself, and if any numbers look like you don't like them, you can adjust them by making a copy of the sheet and then adding your own numbers. But what is more important, what I want to say, is that in this case, I run this with 80%, and my build is fairly strong. Now what you should aim for the strategy to be viable for your build is that you should aim for 80 to 100%, and you should be looking to run 5 to 6 minutes per map. Now I will cover 5 to 8 minutes for what the result's gonna be, and it's still going to look good at 8 minutes. I just think that if you take 8 minutes for this, I would rather recommend for you to look for a different strategy, just as for example just Legion, or Legion with Harbinger, Legion with Breach, or just a different strategy that your build is capable of running faster, because usually running fast means also getting better results in the end. But with that being said, for this, test it out with just random DD orbs and look if you can run it comfortably at 80 or 100%, look if you can run it in a decently fast pace before you're going to heavily invest and prep 100 maps and run this. Alright, that out of the way. The difference between this and the previous iteration. The previous one was going wide. It's something that I really like to do in the previous leagues, but at this point focusing just seems to be better than going wide. So previous was Legion, Brothers Gift Cards, Skittering Delirium Orbs, 5-way sets, stack decks, Awakened Sextants, Raw Divine drops. It's just a lot of stuff. Now we are 90%, or well, I guess 75% focusing on just Scarabs. And then there's a bit more other stuff, of course, in there. But we get to that in a moment. So, what did we actually run? Well, we ran Strands with Abyss on the map device, and then just Abyss and Breach. And then a tiny bonus. Get to in a moment again. So, we took Polished Abyss Scarabs, Rusted Breach Scarab. The reason why we don't need Gilded or Ringed Scarab, Ringed, by the way, just way too expensive for this. But the reason why we aren't using Gilded is that the Gilded Scarabs aren't giving us anything on top of those things that we already have. We just care about a lot of enemies in our maps, and a Gilded Abyss, for example, gives us a Spire. The Spire does spawn more enemies, but as far as I've seen, the enemies spawned by the Spire don't grant you progress in your Delirium reward layers, and don't drop any specific loot. So it will just be taking more time. The Breach gives you just more splinters, which is something we also don't really care about. We just care about having a lot of monsters in our breaches. So we just need these two. Then we have a third Scarab, which is a Rusted Elder. You have an option here. Instead of going for Rusted Elder, you could go for a Rusted Blight Scarab. The benefit of Blight is you adjust slightly on your tree. I will cover this. And with this slightly adjusted tree, Blight is going to give you a ton of enemies. However, it is very deadly, and it does take like about a minute. So it does add additional time on your map, but it does allow you to get more consistently on 18 rewards and sometimes even on 19 rewards. However, just wanted to give you that option. If you're going to go more fast, Rusted Elder is going to be enough. If you want to guarantee your high rewards, then you should consider using a Blight Scarab. And then finally we get to the new lucky drop in our strat, Gilded Bestiary Scarab, allowing us to hunt Quake Cameos, which are about 1.7 divines at the time where I sold mine. To be fair, this video is recorded 2 days later because I didn't have time before, so there might have been a further dip into them that I aren't aware of yet. Anyway, they're still going to be worth something, and this is going to be our lucky drop. We're going to use a Gilded Bestiary Scarab, we're going to hunt those because they don't take much additional time, they don't affect the rest of the strategy, and all they take is a Scarab and a Sextant. As for the Sextant, like Scarabs, we take Abyss and Breach Scarab for filling our map with monsters, and then we have 2 additional Sextants that are somewhat optional. Let me explain. For the Delirium Reward Sextant, we want to use it if it's cheap. If it's about a divine or more than a divine, do not buy it. If it's less than a divine, definitely go for it. It's going to give you a good amount of extra rewards. In my case, it was roughly a divine. I did it for testing, but it does add a lot of additional cost to the strategy as well. So if it's too expensive, don't use it. You're going to make slightly less profit, of course, but also you need less setup because buying it in bulk is more price on the cost. If you buy it in, if you don't buy it, you don't need to buy it in bulk, you don't need to buy it at all. It's just going to be easier, quicker to set it up, and you can start running quicker, and you're going to get slightly less Scarabs out of the strategy. If you need a reference on how many Scarabs you can expect at 80% without it, my previous strategy didn't use it, and we were looking at 60 to 70 roughly of gilded, about 200 polished, and about 650 rusted. With it, we are looking about 700 to 800 rusted, we're looking about 250, 270 polished, and we're looking about 80 to 90 gilded. So of course there is an increase in the amount of Scarabs you get, but the increase is only worth it if the sextant isn't too expensive. The other sextant, copy of Beast, is having also a price check. If the copy of Beast is worth about a half or less of the most expensive Beast, which is usually the Crichton Cameral because we can't get the Harvest Beast in normal maps, then I would say it's worth it. So the Crichton Cameral at the point of my selling and my running, it was 1.722 divines. So as the copy of Beast was not worth more than a divine, was not worth more than 1.8 divines, I said I'm gonna run it, and it turned out really well for me. However, if it's too expensive, don't run it. Instead of those sextants, you can take other things. You can take a Blight sextant, you can take the magic pack size sextant, you can take the reflect sextant. They're just adjustable sextants that just give you a bit of quality life or extra monsters in the map, are more than gonna be enough. But of course, if they are cheap enough, do run them. They're going to add to your profit pretty significantly, again, if they are cheap enough. And then we're going to round it up with Skittering Delirium Orbs. Now, before we're going to get to how the Atlas looks, I should mention how to run and juice these maps. Now, of course, we're going to apply all those things, but when you roll the map, I usually go for chisel and alking, and then checking for mods that I don't like, and then score and re-alk those until I like all the mods. I don't care about specific quantities on the map. If they have higher quantity, I'm going to get more base loot, but mostly the deterministic loot, which are the Scarabs, aren't affected by the quantity and the pack size of the quantity of the map. They are affected by the pack size, because pack size means more monsters, right? And then we're going to play our Delirium Orbs, and we're going to run the map. And when you run the map, as you're going to see in the example video, you want to try to loot the Scarab while running it, so that when you killed the boss, when you looted the boss, you're just going to leave the map and go for the next one. If your inventory is full, sometimes you need to leave, clear inventory and re-enter and loot the last bit, which can happen, especially when you proc all the additional breaches. But again, we get to with the tree. Is that how you want to run the maps? Now with that, let's take a look at the tree. Now I'm going to share the second option on the tree in a moment. But first thing, let's take a look at here. We are basically just very high invested into Abyss and Breach, and then some quality stuff. So we're going to take the huge chain up here for Trail of Destruction, getting all the nodes on our Abysses, combining it with our Abyssal Army for more monsters. So with this and the Abyss Gaps, there's already 100% increased monsters from the Abysses. Then the Trail up here can give you more, and then there are 3 small nodes with another 15% that we want on this, and we get also a chance to get more Abysses over here. Now, the notable Underground Kingdom and Ancient Conflicts is optional. You don't need to use them. If you have the spare points, you can go for them. If you don't have all points, those would be the first 2 I would drop. For Breach, we want those small Breach Chance node here, we want the big Breach Chance node here, and then we also want the increased magic monsters in our breaches, because we care about amount of monsters, also meaning we want the density of breach, and we want the chance for additional breaches in our map. Now we also want these 3 breach chance nodes, and then you can, if you have the spare point again, flash breach or heavy breach. If your build is really good at overlapping league mechanics, heavy breach might be more for you. If you're going for one and when it's almost over, go for the next strategy. For example, I do with my lightning arrow. Flash breach is the one I prefer. Of course, you can take neither and just take the base breach speed. Then we have some map sustain with the shaping the skies. We are blocking all strategies here. You could argue that you don't want to block Blight so you can get it randomly, but in my opinion, Blight already is a lot of time, and if you don't take immune response to make them faster, it's going to take even more time, and I don't really like spending too much time on my maps lately. So this is the reason why I decided to block Blight. Then we're going to travel over Imagined Pursuits, because when we kill the boss, additional layer, additional loot, awesome. And then we get to the Searing Exarch with Word of the Exarch, with the Light of Dawn, and the Wrath of Cosmos to just get a good amount of additional chaos, additional Awakened Sextants from the Searing Exarch altars. And then we have a Bestiary, of course, where we get Great Migration to get chance for more beasts, which means more red beasts, which means potentially more Quakekian rerolls. We're going to get Hunt for Quakekian and Net Resurrection. Net Resurrection, of course, again, more Quakekian rerolls. And Hunt of Quakekian, again, more Quakekian rerolls. And then we're going to use this Eldritch Gateway over here to go all the way over here to grab also Big Game. With, again, having more yellow beasts with the small nodes leading up to it. And then chance for more red beasts, more Quakekian mules, which are the big ticket beasts we are looking for. Now, of course, I said there are some alternatives you can do. In this variation, I took Compulsive Order, I got some additional rewards. I didn't got any additional high value rewards, so any currencies, scarabs, or... No, I think I got one scarab, so it can be lucky and you can get stuff out of it, or you can get unlucky and it will just give you random rewards that you don't see because they're hidden by your loot filter. So if you want an alternative to this, I have this variation. I'm not going to leave it on the side, so you're just going to take a look here. You're going to drop up here, Compulsive Order, and you're going to drop the extra node of Ancient Conflict, of Underground Kingdom, and of the X-Breach, and we're going to grab two things. We're going to pass from the Einhar nodes to Immune Response, and we're going to use our Blight Scarab, and then we're also going to block Expedition, Harvest, and Legion. So we have a high chance for our mechanics to appear, our Blight and our Abysses, and we also have our Blight being now pumping just a lot of monsters out. And that's the tree. So with that, we can finally take a look at our consistent and inconsistent profit. Now I have to say, I might have gotten a bit lucky here. If that is the case, feel free to tell me. If you're going to run this and you want to share your results, really please do. This spreadsheet is set up so you can take any amount of results and add it to it. Because in my case, I actually got 20 Quakekian rerolls. Now this means I've encountered 10 and I duplicated those. But this is of course a significant amount. I had a buddy mention that he got unlucky and he got 3. So now we have a very lucky number with 20 and a very unlucky with 3 being double to 6. So let's say 3 and 10. So with this, if you have more results for me, I can always take them. Just message me on Discord and with your results, with an export if Excellence still works, or if PoE Stack adds export with that, and the amount of maps you run, and I can add them over here to get these results more consistent, because more consistent means anybody can take this, and with similar time, he's gonna get similar results, and that is exactly what I want. Strategies that are consistent in investment and turning into a consistent profit that then can be replicated by anybody. Alright, that out of the way. It took me about 5.5 minutes per map, and in all my maps combined, I've got almost 1,000 Chaos Orbs. 38 stack decks, because stack decks we weren't really targeting, but we could get them from daily rewards, from random legions in my case, or just randomly dropped from... random ground drop don't work, so legion or daily rewards. 176 Awakened Sextants, which are just still crazy expensive this league, and then a map sustain of almost 1-to-1, slightly better with 102 maps, and Scarabs was 28,000 chaos. The way I calculate my Scarab value is that I go to PoE Stack, I go to TFT Bulk Tool, I load my Scarab tab and I set multiplier to 90. This is the middle ground between selling everything quick on TFT and selling it manually. Now of course, again, if you don't like this example, you can always just further adjust the number by copying the spreadsheet and adjusting it manually, and then see the results how you would assume they would be. In my case, I'm going to leave it with this because I think this is fairly reasonable. So with my time, based on these results, on consistent drops, we are looking at 5.7 divines per hour. Now I have to say, for a consistent strategy, this is a base profit based on things that we expect to get a 1 per map or 30 consistent. So Chaos Orb, Sextants, Map Sustain and the Scarabs. We have made 170 Chaos profit per map. Just, in my opinion, really insane. As comparison, in the previous iteration, it took me 8-minute maps. But even if I say, okay, let's say 5-minute maps, At 5-minute maps it was 5.7. So here we are looking with slightly slower speed, already at 5.7 for Divines. So it adds up real quick. The faster you get, the more insane it's going to be. And if we go further and at the inconsistent profit, we are looking at 10.35 Divines. Now of course, not every is going to be as fast as this. My build is fairly maxed. I'm putting a lot of effort into running these maps quickly and consistently. So let's take a look at what happens if you say you aren't that fast. Well, let's say 6-minute maps. At 6 minutes per map, we're looking at 5.26 consistent and 9.49 consistent and inconsistent profit. But again, not everybody is that fast, so let's say 7-minute maps. We are looking at, did it took it? Yeah, 4.51 divines per hour consistent and 8.13 divines per hour inconsistent profit. And lastly, of course, if some people that just really love Delirium, they want to run Delirium even though it's not, they aren't the most efficient at it, that is fine if you enjoy this. Let's take a look at 8 minutes. At 8 minutes per map, which is what I took in on the previous iteration, 3.94 divines consistent and 7.1 divines inconsistent profit. Again, as comparison with the previous one. 3.56 consistent and 5.51 inconsistent. But the inconsistent is still, you don't get it every map, but you will get it eventually. So we have a 5.51 compared to 7.12. It is just ridiculous in my opinion. How insane the scales with just running quick, and still how much base profit it is even if you are a bit slower. Which brings me finally to my results. Now in my case, most of my profit came straight up from the Scarabs. I got a few lucky drops, of course, that make up about 3% of my profit, and combined with my consistent and inconsistent results, I've been looking at over, well, slightly over, of course, over 1 divine profit per map, making this one of the most insane strategies I've run all league, just because it is crazy quick and crazy rewardable. So, based on my time of 5.5 minute average per map, I made 11.5 divines an hour. Now of course, some maps took me 6 minutes, so even if it took me 6 minutes on average, I'm still looking over 10 divines an hour. This is just, for a strategy that has almost no variation, this is insane. Now of course, again, the Crikey Camilles are the variation, we can argue with that, but overall, this has just been a very lucrative strategy, and if you enjoy Delirium, I can definitely recommend this. But yeah, but all this, fine and dandy. Let's take a look in-game at actual numbers. So, in my stash, right now I have 174 divines and 3,426 chaos. If we take a look here real quick at the total expenses. So we're going to take a calculator, we take my expenses of 3,190, and at that point a divine was for me, as I bulk sort my chaos for divines, 225 chaos. That is an 80.8 divine investment. So if we take this 80.8 divine investment and remove it from here, because we do want to know the actual profit, not a fancy high number that isn't extracting the cost, because that is what really matters in the end, right? So we take our 81 divines. We are looking, now of course this is with manually sold scarabs, I know, but it is worth its time if you get those many scarabs, I guess. 93 divines and 3,426. Now those, again, 3,426 divided by 250, another 15 divines. So those is 108 divines profit. Again, over a divine profit per map, and just crazy result. Of course, it's a very high investment of paying 80 divines up front or 81 divines up front to be able to run this, but getting this results after this is just absolutely ridiculous. With that being said, as per usual, if anything is left unclear, if I've forgotten anything, or you disagree with anything that I said in the video, feel free to let me know or ask in the comment section, or message me over Discord on my server or via DM, or you can ask me in-game if I'm online, and of course you can also ask me on Twitch when I'm live streaming. And all that being said now, have a wonderful day and I see you in the next video.